Welcome to the start of a new year and a new series of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling. My name is William Fitzpatrick, and hello, folks. I hope you've had a very good new year. I hope you've had a happy and safe new year to kick off 2019, because certainly the world of professional wrestling did not stop for New Year's to start kicking things off. Wow. Didn't think we'd be getting into this so soon, but we have ourselves a Sengoku period or Warring States period in the world of professional wrestling. Yes, we live in this timeline, folks. And it's a very interesting timeline because on New Year's Eve day at midnight, yesterday, because today's the 2nd, well, Cody Rhodes and the Bucks had a bit of a surprise for all of us. It had been in the news for a couple of months at this point, but the rumors had been circulating, and since I don't trust rumors, I waited for the official announcement because, it'd be one thing for them to invest in an all new wrestling promotion, but say, Sykes, no, we're just putting a bunch of people on a doomed road cruise through Chifulu territory, and hopefully Delirious will be eaten by a giant squid monster this time. Nope, this time it's all elite wrestling. They're going double or nothing. All the card shark terminologies are making me a little nervous, but again, they're going double or nothing, and apparently they're having another pay-per-view in the spring. And a brand new wrestling promotion. All Elite Wrestling. Wow. So it turns out that they have an investor, or an owner in this particular case, one of the Khan family from who own the Jacksonville Jaguars of the NFL. So let's break this down. Vince McMahon angering the football gods has caused the football gods to show up on his very turf. A guy that has been looking into pro wrestling for years, who did his research, the co-owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Mr. Khan. It's not Shah Khan, his father, it's his son, who is investing into pro wrestling in this particular instance. Saw the numbers, saw that All In did extremely well this year, and decided, you know what, I'm going to step into this pro wrestling arena. And having the common sense and business skills, because again, money, investments, and apparently they're investing a large amount of money in advertising dollars in this particular instance. He saw that there was an opening in the market. He saw that Vince McMahon was trifling on the precious football market at this point, especially since the Jaguars have always been a team that's been sort of on the edge of moving to London at times, or Oakland if the Raiders decide to move out, and the NFL needs an emergency team to move in for that year or something. But anyway, he did the research, he looked at the numbers, he saw all of these wrestling people who were desperate for another promotion to be unveiled, and in all honesty, they wanted to continue to be independent because there's trouble afoot of Mordor. If my observation skills could be correct in this particular instance, there's trouble in Mordor, and I'll get to that as we are going through this episode. But this is the arising of the warring elite of wrestling. Now, say what you want about the Cody, the Bucks, their antics, all of their antics with all elite wrestling and being the elite and bringing upon the plague of locusts known as the Bullet Club into all of our lives. When I start seeing Bullet Club t-shirts in my hometown, I know that that thing has gone too far. Yes, All Elite Wrestling Taker is a thing. It is real. It exists. And they are signing people on their promotion as we speak. The Bucks have signed. Brandy Rhodes has signed. It looks like the Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky have also signed. That would be Harold from that one WWE anger management skit, by the way, for those of you who don't know who Scorpio Sky is. They've been mainstays in Ring of Honor. That's another party that we have to talk about in this particular instance. Ring of Honor is a promotion that, to most observers, for whatever reason, seems to have gone, Ring of Honor screwed up yet again. They may end up being the surprise winners in all of this. And like I said, I'll get into this. So let's start off with the basics. Cody Rhodes found a person who was willing to invest in professional wrestling. Because it's Cody. Come on, look. I know that Jim Ross and Chris Jericho are going to claim and do all this sort of pontificating that they were the ones that did it, but Cody is smart and sensible, and he knows football teams, okay? WCW was right next to Atlanta, Georgia, in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia, where the Falcons are. They know the Blank family. They know the Blank family. So they have the Rhodeses have always had football connections from the very start of their professional wrestling careers. I think Dustin Rhodes was a football player at one point. I can't be 100% certain, but they always go off into football. And Cody was a freestyle wrestler before he got into wrestling, I believe. So they had the connections to the football people. All they were waiting for was the football gods to basically say, who is this interloper and what is he doing here? And when Vince McMahon reignited his feud with the Ebersol family, because that's exactly what this feud started out as, Dick Ebersol's son decided to revive a football league it's a different football league than the XFL. The Ebersols and the McMahons have feuded with one another since the early 90s when Dick Ebersol pulled Saturday Night Main Event off of NBC. That was due to the Sergeant Slaughter Iraqi sympathizer angle. See, sometimes when Vince does a crazy, insane angle during the middle of a Gulf War, it does backfire on him sometimes. If you take a look at Vince McMahon's whole track record, he has more losses than actual wins. He's also one of the last people who's a wrestling family that is actually invested into professional wrestling. The rest are either conglomerates, or in the case now we have actually a second promotion that is owned by wrestlers, All Elite Wrestling, with the Khans being the main owners of this business. So what we have here is a promotion that is going to likely be based in Jacksonville. A bit of an odd market to be put into wrestling, but they need something to fill out that football stadium occasionally. I mean, unless, of course, it means that the wrestlers are tackling Blake Bortles to death for all the interceptions he did this past season. But at least they'll have probably better success than Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers had. They missed the playoffs this year. So at least this company, which has black and gold in its logo, actually looks like the Jacksonville Jaguars logo to a certain extent because they have that similar logo. So it kind of ties into the local scene, and it also ties into the football team. So you have Cody, the Bucks, who are likely going to be leaving New Japan, and Lord Harold is not going to be happy. Harold Menji, for those of you who might not be aware, he's the guy that currently runs New Japan Pro Wrestling. Yeah, and they're also doing international expansion plans. They're going to be running a show in the Carolinas. It's Florida, Fizz. They may just make it their base and pitch off some of the NXT fans. Oh, no. Actually, I was actually going to get to that, Taker. One of the great fantasy bookings I'm actually starting to work on this year is All Elite Wrestling fans versus the kaiju monsters that they're developing over in MLW. Because, look, it's Alex Greenfield. He loves kaiju films. If they don't have a kaiju monster being developed in their laboratories at MLW in Orlando, then I don't know what they're doing, given the fact that they're right next to Universal Monster Resort. So, yes, giant killer monsters. And then, of course, you've got NXT and the Cult of Full Sail. So it's like this freeway battle for supremacy for wrestling in Florida. If somebody gets the naming rights to the Continental Wrestling Association from Florida, you can add in a fourth promotion. So you have All Elite Wrestling in Jacksonville, MLW in Orlando, and their next door neighbor in Orlando in scenic Winter Park, Florida. My dad used to live there. Full Sail in lovely Full Sail University. Sign up for our cult membership benefits and get a free dagger. May you use it to sacrifice whatever goat you may see. Not Daniel Bryan. He's currently going for a heel run at this point. For once we have a championship run with this guy. Might as well use him at this point. But everything else is fair game. So if I am a goat farmer in Florida, I am absolutely loving all of these cults of wrestling springing up. All these cults of personality. No, Punk, you're still not invited. You're in your MMA box at this point. In the middle of Florida, Cultville, USA. It's fun. It's wonderful. It's a great way to start off the new year. I actually am excited about this, which is surprising. Given that I have been somewhat negative about Cody and the Bucks in the past, but that's because mostly about their wrestling. As business people, they've been phenomenal the last 5 years. They managed to harangue a t-shirt company into printing pro wrestling t-shirts. They've done every single smart business decision that they can make. They managed to get into the Chicago market, somehow make a profit in the Chicago market without having to worry about dealing with all the crazy locals and the local wrestling promotions that were busy setting themselves on fire this past year. um, well, as long as Mustafa Ali doesn't run into any cliffs like the last guy named Mustafa did, or runs into anybody named Scar. I think he has some solid chances of possibly winning the WWE Championship from Darth Nomius the Everbearded. That is if he doesn't lose his hearing from Brie mode. Or runs into the typical cruiserweight problem of running into some challengers that might give him some issues. Or some feuds that might actually delay some of his heat or whatnot. But again, like I said, keeping an open mind about Ali, but returning to All Elite, this is a fantastic business decision. They're in Florida. Taxes are good in Florida. They have an owner that is willing to spend a lot of money to literally crush NXT into dust because this is what they're targeting. They're not targeting Mordor necessarily. They're targeting Hunter's Empire. And for Triple H, this is absolutely the worst kind of news you could possibly think of having. You spurred the Rhodes family away from WWE, with the exception of Dustin. All of those carny antics that you did a few years ago set Cody off. He jumps to the independent scene, really likes it. Darth Nomius. Yes, with the plural, Nomius. Yeah. He jumps off to the independent scene, finds that he likes it, and gets inspiration to be a cowboy like his father was. And now he's set himself up on a situation where he is starting up a promotion. He's starting up a promotion in Hunter's backyard. I mean, like I said, if you're a goat farmer in Florida and you have sacrificial goats that you want to sell to these free different promotions, man, you're going to be able to make a killing. So far, who's been signed has been obviously Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, SCU, which is it's the latest stable name for Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky. A group of people who go through more stable names than Kazarian does through gimmicks. I mean, because Christopher Daniels is basically immortal at this point. I mean, he hasn't aged in like 20 years, maybe 30. I mean, the only thing that's changed is he lost his hair. But everything else about him, it's like he's some kind of like immortal vampire or something. And yes, I have steaks, garlic, and everything that you need to ward off Bullet Club fans. Yep. And technically also the Cult of Full Sail, given the fact that I have a tendency to snark on them a lot. So we have a situation here where we have these three promotions that are in the same market that are going to be competing against one another for talent, which for the wrestlers, it's fantastic news. The bargaining price has gone up. If you're a wrestler and you know how to invest in yourself and know any kind of basic economics, yes, economics, and you know your market value, you're going to be able to make a lot of money from this particular situation. You now have, what is it now? 5 major promotions? Yes, 5 major promotions. King Kong Bundy and Big E are now suing for gimmick infringement at this point because we have 5 promotions in the running. And I guess I should probably talk about all of them, starting with, of course, the newcomer in this particular instance. Now, they're going to be doing a press conference on January 8th in Jacksonville, Florida. Hopefully it doesn't have a rain out. Where they're going to be announcing the signings and they're going to be announcing the various different things that they are currently doing. All while they're currently working at the January 4th Tokyo Dome show in Japan for New Japan. Actually, let's see here. All Elite Wrestling, WWE, NXT, MLW, um, New Japan, Ring of Honor. That's Impact. Actually, no, it's 7 promotions. 7. And I know people are basically kicking and screaming that the original Donner Party of professional wrestling is going to lose out in this situation. I think they're doing okay too, in all honesty. Take a couple of years to rebuild. That's really what they have to do in that situation. But I'll get to Impact when I start with All Elite Wrestling. So you have all these pieces. You have Cody, you have the Bucks, you have Daniel Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. You have potentially you have Pentagon Jr. on the list of people that you want to sign. Phoenix, Kenny Omega, possibly, and a bunch of other talent that is currently stuck on the independent scene. You could possibly make a talent sharing agreement with Impact for your first couple of years if you want to. You also got a bunch of expiring contracts from Lucha Underground that you can potentially take advantage of, depending on what their situation currently is. A lot of their stuff is currently right up in the air. 7 promotions nationally. That's what I'm referring to, not 7 promotions in Florida. There's like maybe 50 to 150 promotions in Florida if we count the backyard promotions. Or, no, if we count the backyard promotions and the promotions that promote person wrestling against alligators or crocodiles, because they kind of escaped into the swamps when Hurricane Andrew hit, so there are crocodiles in the swamps as well. They say they caught all of them, but I don't believe them. Because it's Florida, Taker. It's Florida. So you have a very solid foundation of individuals. You also have the potential to sign a lot of young talent that is out and about on the various different independent scenes. And given the fact that I've covered a lot of local promotional wrestling this year, and I've seen for my very own eyes just how deep the talent pool in places like Western New York is. Daniel Garcia, Mike Skyros, Terrell Kenneth, Kevin Bennett, Brian Cassidy, heck, even down in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you got Warlow, the main event. That's main event, MANE event. You've got all of these different wrestlers in the Midwest, like Calvin Tankman. You've got West Coast guys like Eli Everfly. You've got a massive women's roster. You've got Jordan Grace, Holly Dead. You've got Tessa Blanchard if she gets out of her contract with Impact. You've got all of these different people. You've got Kylie Ray, Britt Baker, Faye Jackson, Tara Calloway, if you want to get her on a 2-year contract since she's winding down her wrestling career at this point. You've got a lot of options. You've even got the whole NXT signee releases, or as I call them, the sacrifices to keep the Shrine of Triple H going as he continues on his what I consider some kind of legacy tour where he's trying to do the Hulk Hogan thing and trying to absorb the souls of all the wrestling fans that he beats in these foreign countries. I mean, I'm honestly amazed that nations like Australia and Saudi Arabia haven't been turned to glass by NXT's conquest of them, much less the Brits. But speaking of NXT, let's focus on them next. I have modest expectations with All Elite Wrestling. NXT is in trouble. They are a promotion that has a very bloated roster at this point. They have signed everybody. Triple H has literally become Dan Snyder, Garth Snow, and every single incompetent MLB manager from every major sports league franchise in existence. This guy cannot stop signing people. And he's signing a lot of free agents to exclusive deals and contracts. Which, again, if you're a wrestler and you go, if that deal is good, okay. Walter just signed an exclusivity deal with WWE, so now he can stay in Europe. He can stay in Europe because he wants to stay close to home, and he doesn't have to worry about having to go all over the world wrestling for these various indie companies. For him, that's a situation that's good for him. For somebody else, they might want to sign with All Elite Wrestling. They might want to sign with Ring of Honor. They might want to sign with. Look at what happened with Bandolo. He signed with Ring of Honor. Everybody offered up massive contracts, and You know, everyone on massive contracts, and he was one of the guys that benefited in that situation. I'm not sure if necessarily killed. I think it's just going to go back to more of a pre-development phase for NXT, which I think really is, in my mind, the end game for if I am NXT. Hunter has been trying to build NXT as this third touring brand, and also keeping it as sort of a developmental with locking wrestlers in what is known as the Coconut Loop in Florida, while also having some tours in other places. There is a very large amount of popularity for NXT events because they can actually run in these smaller venues that a WWE house show, for example, would be running in normally because they want to keep their agreement with that arena to host WWE events. The thing that is often not realized about what is going on in the wrestling world is that they constantly have fights with the arena promotions about cost, about these events, and the arena promoters want these events to be cost prohibitive, i.e., they don't really want to have to spend a lot of money in promoting these events. That WWE does the coverage of these. Yeah, they were supposed to be a developmental thing, but Isengard, they decided that they were going to go, let's take over the wrestling world. I mean, they had a ginormous conquest map in yellow of all of these developmental territories that would be conquered across the nations of the world, branded with the yellow and black of NXT, as the mighty conqueror himself, Triple H, brings his holy war of wrestling to all comers of the world of professional wrestling. It's like William the Conqueror conquering Britain in Sen 66. Although at this point, Triple H's run is more resembling Harold Hydrata, the Viking conqueror who attempted to conquer Britain but ended up getting killed in 1066 as well. Yes, historical references on this podcast. If you're new to Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling and you're not familiar with this show, well, here's your crash course. So NXT is in a situation where they have a lot of bloated contracts and they are desperately trying to ship people off to the main roster at this point. Here, have a six-pack of wrestlers. Random assorted wrestlers. These people aren't even remotely over in NXT with the exception of Heavy Machinery, and it's probably because of the fact that they eat jobbers like they eat steaks. But in this situation, you have NXT now having to force their wrestlers into the main roster, and honestly, they're perfect main roster wrestlers. They're not great fits for NXT, so now you're stuck with a one-legged Tommaso Ciampa, because you never know when that ACL of his is going to act up again. A Johnny Gargano who is now a villain. He's now in the proper alignment, but you have a problem now because Ciampa's in the wrong alignment. He's not a heel, he's a face. You have Aleister Black, who is the biggest babyface in this promotion in Florida, an area that is full of cults and hails Santa. That does not surprise me in the slightest that he's a majorly over babyface. But again, he's in a situation where he's also potentially main roster bound within the next 6 months. Then you've got Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, and strangely enough, a large amount of Evolve's roster is on NXT now. Obviously, there are a few guys that are not on this roster at this point. Tony Nese is in 205 Live. Cale Connolly, I believe, signed with Impact. I think he's still having that long-standing match with Timothy Thatcher at that One Evolve show. But the problem they have also, not just because of the wrestlers I think are pretty solid. They have an amazingly stacked women's division. Shayna Baszler is the unlikely anchor that has really shored up a division that has had to deal with a lot of injury concerns. The Dakota Kai ended up getting injured a couple weeks ago at a house show in Green Bay, I believe. Tegan Knox had the devastating knee injury. Most of the other female wrestlers are often Britain, trying to establish the NXT UK brand. World of Progress is going to be such a train wreck, and I'm already seeing comparisons to British Leyland for this thing. So the Florida branch of NXT is in a situation where they're going to have to rely on a lot of young, unknown talent. And for the young, unknown talent, it's a perfect situation for them. They get to rise up for the ranks of WWE. And if their developmental contract runs out and WWE doesn't want to re-sign them, then guess what? They get to go to one of these other promotions. Again, once again, if you're savvy about how you market yourself in this situation, you're going to be able to take benefit of desperate promoters getting desperate for talent shortages, which there's a lot of talent on the indie scene. The problem is not necessarily the talent, it's that every single one of these promotions and areas seems to be in some kind of gosh forsaken clique. Look, guys, gals, imitating Shawn Michaels, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, X Pac, and wasn't just incredible in the clique at one point, I think. Ain't exactly the best idea for your long term success. It might be good short term, but if you're not communicating with each other, then what are you doing? In addition to the fact of all of the antics that the clique caused, they almost sank two wrestling promotions in the span of 4 years. WWE and WCW. Although technically that was a combination effort with, Bischoff, Russo, and everybody else involved in that situation. If Linda had not been such a good money manager with WWE, and they had people in there that were good money managers, then the WWE would have been out in 2001 as well, because they really heavily overspent. So NXT is in a situation right now where their scene is bloated, but they have some pieces to work with. They have some talent. They have the Undisputed Era. They have a surefire babyface in Adam Cole. I know that the people who are currently listening are a little shocked about the fact that I just said something positive about Adam Cole, but if they turn him babyface and have him be beaten alive by the Undisputed Era, then there you go. You've got Cole versus Strong as one of your feuds for the rest of the year. And Roderick Strong, he's thrived in NXT. He's thrived in this promotion. The Bizarro World version of Roderick Strong has returned, and it is currently here in this promotion, NXT of all places, that he's thriving. And now you've also got a feud between Kasia Sono and Matt Riddle, which will be on this week's NXT broadcast as they're doing a year-end special. So then we have WWE proper. WWE proper had an inconsistent year. They had an inconsistent booking year. The bookers started feuding with the fans, of all people, about how things are to be booked in this situation, which has led to much amounts of comedy and hilarity. As somebody who does not have a horse in this fight, I don't have a horse or any other kind of weapon or any other kind of thing in this fight. I'm basically the watcher. I'm Utaru the watcher at this point. I'm basically going, this is interesting. I wonder how this is going to catch on fire today, or how this is going to actually work out for the better. And when you look at Mordor, they actually had a fairly solid year. Nothing really particularly major happened that was particularly, I don't know what you would call it, horrible, except for, the regular complaints about people complaining about Legends. Guys, they're basically cribbing from the AWA in this situation. They're basically cribbing from the Crusher and Von Raschke's run as AWA tag champions, okay? Or WCW always bringing in Legends during a mini feud or so for, as a jobber for the heavyweight champion or something like that. Then you have, Triple H, Taker, Kane, and did Shawn Michaels really break his retirement? I mean, technically, he broke his retirement in an area that isn't the United States. So, does his retirement still apply or not? The only awkward thing that they had to deal with this year was the international markets collapsing in on themselves. You've got the European market currently stuck in the middle of Brexit, and Germany's not doing too much better in this situation. Spain's bankrupt, and France is France, I guess. So they decided to get a $45 million or $45 billion loan from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. which has turned into one of my favorite soap operas of this decade. The awkward 11-year-long arranged marriage that they have currently had to endure between each other. The Saudis do not like this. The Americans do not like this. Well, WWE in this situation doesn't really like this either. And the guy that actually was promoting the idea in the first place on the Saudi government side of things just got demoted. Either he got demoted or he willingly decided to go resign himself to a different position because he was tired of dealing with Satan. Vince McMahon, for those of you who don't know. Tired of dealing with Vince McMahon, he decided to resign to a different position where he's now taking, I think he's in charge of the Saudi Olympic team now. You know, so we have a situation where WWE has had its issues with the uh so WWE has had its issues in the international markets, and the main roster has had inconsistent booking. Raw has been pretty atypical for Raw since like 1997. There's some good shows, there's some bad shows, there's some shows that make you question the meaning of all life and existence. There are some shows that make you think of all sorts of existential questions. Then you have SmackDown, which has basically become the Becky Stan show. Yeah, that was your warning, Taker, to hike her up in the bunker. I think I may have just triggered the Becky Stans. Well, that's up to the KSA. They're the ones that approached WWE with the deal, and they decided to get this to sign this contract. It's technically their fault that they wanted to invest with an American company with a notoriously bad reputation like WWE does. I mean, was the castle with the Vince McMahon head face with molten lava pouring out of its mouth not enough of an indication as to what WWE technically is? But yes, SmackDown has apparently become the Becky Lynch show, as Becky has decided to do something rather crazy. She is now impersonating her fans. No, literally, that is what her heel gimmick is. She calls herself the Man. You want to know what rhymes with man? Stan. She's stanning herself. She is a Becky Stan. She's the Man. I mean, I just look at this gimmick and I go, how long have you been sitting in catering, looking at your phone and studying your fan base, Bex? Besides the obvious thing that you should be doing in that situation, which is filing as many restraining orders as humanly possible. If you're sensible, and I believe Becky is sensible in this situation, she has now become somehow the top face on SmackDown. Oops. We wanted the top heel, but instead we got the top face on SmackDown. Oops. Like many things in WWE, the word oops could be basically described in this situation. Especially after Becky had a run in with a very invisible wrestler who somehow managed to make herself visible, and old righty hit her face. And the image of Becky standing in the crowd with blood draining out of her nose is one of those iconic images. Put your hands down, Billy and Peyton. We're not talking about you. In 2018 wrestling. So you have the Iconics. Well, obviously, the Iconics are on SmackDown, and they're typical irritating banshee jobbers. Obviously, Leap Saxon's going to be very happy about that. You have Becky. Asuka's the current women's champ after she decimated the rest of the field in a TLC match, which was main event of the show. And I don't know why people haven't noticed. Charlotte's had this gimmick for years. She's always had the psycho wrestler gimmick. People are now saying or proclaiming, "Oh, look, it's Psycho Charlotte." I mean, Charlotte already looked like an angry grandma. with mascara and makeup on, who was basically screaming at those children to get off of her dang lawn. I mean, she's now embraced it. She had a phenomenal match with Punch at Survivor Series, where she literally beat the bejesus out of Ronda Rousey, being this big, psychotic bird thing with a combination of genetically modified corn, bird DNA, and whatever they were collecting from Ric Flair. So you have three pillars in this situation, and Carmella's revived herself. She had a heel run. She had a very solid heel championship run. And she has literally become one of the more interesting characters on this roster because of just how many hula hoops she's dodged. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Enzo, Cass, and Ellsworth are all currently sleeping in the Potomac with 17 feet of concrete underneath them. And Carmella is still here. You know, I think everybody realized at that particular point in time, her father used to be an enhancement talent for the WWF in the 80s. Okay, we don't want to cross this one. So Roadkill Hair gets Roadkill Haired, Big Cass gets annihilated by Daniel Bryan, and Ellsworth has a date with Chris Hansen. So, we have all those. So she dodges all of those bullets. It gets into this entertaining team with R-Truth. SmackDown and Raw are both pretty much equal at this point, in my view. I know other people will say differently, but I feel that both of them are having very solid runs. Raw is developing a pretty solid mid-card main event scene with Finney McBrogue and Drew McIntyre. They also have the abominable Braun Strowman, who has survived his encounter with a certain axe-wielding ECW mutant this Christmas. And, I feel as though that Braun is doing okay at this point. He's challenging Brock at the Rumble. I think that will be an okay, enjoyable match. It will probably be the shoot fight of the century. If Kenny Omega and Hiroshi Tanahashi doesn't become the shoot fight of the century in that situation. I'm not sure if suffered is the word. I mean, do we count Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose as apocalyptic levels of suffering? I mean, judging from, I mean, the Roman announcement's devastating, but I feel like they have rebounded well enough from that situation that they're slowly but surely getting themselves back from the precipice of doom at this point. And they're doing some good things right now with McIntyre, well, literally ending Dolph Ziggler. And Finney is starting to get a lot of momentum back. Your biggest question marks are Ambrose and Rollins. As Rollins keeps digging himself into every single gosh dang hole and bear trap imaginable. And Dean Ambrose is Dean Ambrose, just with a reconstructed shoulder. Yeah, I have not seen the full match from TLC yet involving Ambrose and Rollins, but from what I have heard and from what clips I've seen of that particular match, I'm going, oh, well, this is to be expected. A match with Dean and Rollins in it. It's like they were literally expecting it to be horrible. I'm not sure if it is apocalyptically as bad as that time that Dean Ambrose faced The Miz for 27 minutes. Something that is still etched into my mind. I think it was that bonfire that they had a 27-minute long match. Oh, that was painful. So, Mordor, they now have 6 new wrestlers coming up onto their roster. We have Lars Sullivan, which should give people who don't like Braun Strowman nightmares at this point, although I think he's a pretty decent wrestler. You know, he's been decent, nothing spectacular. Basically, what they're trying to do with Lars Sullivan is to try to make him a combination clone of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Vader, because he's built from the Rocky Mountains. And Vader was also built from the Rocky Mountains during his time in WWE. You have Nikki Cross, who basically already debuted challenging Becky Lynch for the title a few months back, but now she's officially debuted. which means that Sanity is finally going to have some relevance on SmackDown, or she's going over to Raw to murder the Riot Squad. Knowing Big Nikki and her unpredictability, I have no idea what she's doing. At least I hope she still is the Igor baking assistant to Candice LeRae while she makes a giant cupcake monster to kill, or, well, destroy the entirety of the NXT enhancement talent roster for the glories of Pope Triple H. So they can sign some of those all elite wrestling people. Let's see here. Of the 7 promotions, we've talked about All Elite Wrestling. We've talked about NXT having some issues. We've talked about main roster WWE kind of writing itself. Let's see here. We have Lacey Evans. Don't really know what to think of this one. Really, I don't. She could either do very well, or she's going to get mauled to death by feminists. There really is no in between with this one. So you have Heavy Machinery, who are a very solid, really well built team, and I know a few people are going to be really happy about the fact that Heavy Machinery exists and they're going to be on the main roster. I mean, WWE has had a surplus of stakes that they've had to that they're having to get rid of since Ryback left. So I guess Otis Dozovich is going to literally consume them like a Heavy Machinery. And then finally we have Ethan Carter the Third. Okay, EC3, the former Derek Bateman, is coming to the main roster. Not as an enhancement talent this time, as an actual storyline character. Are they going to pair him up with the Offers of Pain and Drake Maverick for his first story? Because that seems like the most logical use of EC3. Or reteam him up with Darth Nomius, since Daniel Bryan was his mentor during his run on NXT. So having him be basically like the Darth apprentice to Daniel Bryan's Sith Lord antics, that would work in that particular context. So you have a main roster. Let's see here. Then we have the strange case of MLW. MLW has got a lot of veterans on their roster that is a combination of a lot of Impact talent and a lot of guys that used to work for that promotion in the early 2000s. They've got some solid booking, they've got some solid teams, and they've got a lot of good young talent that they're going to be able to book in this situation. However, they're already running into their first crossroads. ROH has started to pillage their luchador division, and Shane Strickland might be signing with either WWE, might be signing with Impact, might be going to Ring of Honor, or he might go to this whole All Elite Wrestling thing. I mean, that's basically the situation right now. His contract's up in the air, and there's a question as to whether or not he's going to be staying with the promotion, especially given the fact that he's still working for Evolve, which has basically become a WWE satellite promotion. Yes, WWE now has a satellite promotion again, and it's Evolve. And you thought that the fires from the Flow Slam debacle was bad enough for that promotion. Well, at least they've taken away their booker. Not in a straitjacket, unfortunately, but Gabe Spolsky is now booking in NXT along with Steve Cornino and Shawn Michaels. Yet another reason to be greatly concerned about the future of Isengard is because those three happen to be booking. Steve Cornino has already nearly killed 2 promotions. So, much like Dusty Rhodes, he's got a rather impressive tenure of somehow nearly killing promotions. The original MLW, which I believe he was a part of the booking team at that point, and also Ring of Honor for a bit there before Delirious took over as booker. And say what you want about Delirious, he has at least managed to keep the ship stable for at least a decade now, but it's clear as daylight that they're trying to find a replacement somewhere. Maybe it's the giant Frankenstein monster that they just signed, PCQ. How good is he as a booker? I have to wonder. So you have MLW, which is now gone for their first year. They have investment from a rapper named Wale. Um, it's a solid long-term investment. They're doing a lot more touring in New York City and Chicago now, which makes me start to think that they might be moving their operations away from Orlando, possibly, and more into, like, say, Missouri or Chicago or New York. Those seem to be markets that they're trying to tour into a lot more. They've got a lot of large amount of talent. You know, they are definitely raiding the Northern Indies at this point as far as talent acquisition is concerned. They got H. Romero on their roster now. Um, they've got a lot of decent talent that is definitely going to be able to move places if a better offer comes up. That's MLW's biggest weakness right now. Creatively, they're okay. They're really solid with a lot of old guard people in their creative positions. The only one I realistically trust is Greenfield, who's in charge of the production with MLW at this point. They've got a TV deal with beIN Sports, and they're making about $21 million per year on that one, or $2.1 million a year. I'm not exactly certain of the numbers. Or the viewership numbers is about 21 million, I think, for that one. Because it's a very popular channel in Central America, beIN Sports. So they've got a TV deal in place. They also are now posting their matches on YouTube as well. So you've got that promotion, which is kind of stuck in the middle at this point. Then you have Ring of Honor. They just unloaded some massive contracts. They still have a working agreement with New Japan. For how much longer, we have no idea, but I do think that New Japan is still willing to work with them at this point, especially since New Japan needs somebody to at least cover the cost of their expenses while they try to invade America, like a horde of rampaging samurai. Um, you have a roster that has got a lot of young pieces on it, centered by Jonathan Gresham, of all people, who is a very talented wrestler. You've got Jack Sabre Jr., who has committed more dates to Ring of Honor at this point. You got a lot of guys that don't normally fit into a lot of other promotions working in Ring of Honor right now. Currently, your biggest problem right now are the guys that have been there the longest. You've got Jay Lethal still there. The Briscoes are unfortunately still there. You've got a lot of older talent that's still there, but some of it still functions. There's still some reasonable talent there that still functions. I mean, if you can base a you could base a feud. Although I don't know if Flips Gordon is staying around Ring of Honor or not, or is jumping to All Elite Wrestling. I'm not sure about that. I know Marty is staying. Marty Scroll is staying in Ring of Honor. He's spoilers has formed a Frankenstein duo with Frankenstein and the Wolfman, PCQ, and Brody King, who has signed with the company. Brody King signed with the company after a solid run in Limitless and AAW. So he gets away from the Chicago Tire Fire and signs with a major promotion. I think that's a really good deal for him. Shane Taylor's re-signed with Ring of Honor. He's still having a solid run with that promotion. He's the tag partner to Keith Lee, for those of you who might not be aware. And you've also got a bunch of young guys that are coming into Ring of Honor who are doing very well. I know a lot of people are sleeping on Ring of Honor because of their ownership situation, and they're in just as bad an ownership situation as, say, WWE is with international contracts with Sinclair, but they dumped a lot of money away from the Bucks and Cody and are now investing it into guys like Mark Haskins, Brody King, Jonathan Gresham. You have a really solid roster there, and I think that they're going to be able to make some noise in 2019. I know a lot of people are not very optimistic about this promotion, but either they're going to make some noise or they're going to go flying, screaming like a roller coaster and banking from the tracks. And then, of course, we've got, so let's see, I've covered All Elite Wrestling. I've covered WWE, NXT, Ring of Honor, MLW. So All Elite Wrestling 1, WWE 2, NXT 3, MLW 4, ROH 5. 6 and 7 are New Japan and Impact. Okay, New Japan. New Japan has a roster that is considerably more over the hill than any other roster on this list. They've got a lot of guys in their 40s and 50s on their roster. Some of them can still perform, like Nuji Nagata. But a lot of them, like Hiroshi Tenzin, are basically headed for retirement. You're now stuck with the lesser end of the Bullet Club and the Firing Squad. Even though Fale can do some really solid work with Okada, he hasn't really been able to string it together with anybody else. You're doing this Wrestle Kingdom with Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kenny Omega. You're not sure if Kenny's going to be sticking around. And for your sake, I hope he doesn't. And he signs with another promotion like All Elite Wrestling. Or heck, WWE snags him up. Because in all honesty, Kenny Omega is Kita Nane's last real major signing. He's the guy that has been the last major signing for the Kita Nane era of New Japan. Harold wants to go in a different direction. You can see he wants to go in a different direction with what he is doing as far as his roster is concerned. He's starting to invest a lot more in luchadors. He's starting to invest a lot more in British guys who are open because of now the situation that's been going on in the UK. You have a lot of different options as far as talent goes. You have Tanahashi, you have Robinson, you have an okay roster. It's not great. It's probably the weakest roster out of the 7 of the promotions. And yes, I consider Impact's roster somehow better than this because moving to Impact, they're on a new network starting in January. They are on the Pursuit channel, which here's the funny story about the Pursuit channel. DirecTV was having a feud with the Outdoor Living channel. And the Outdoor Living channel was having a lot of trouble with different providers in 2007, 2008. So Dish and Direct decided to create their own hunting channels. And Pursuit was one of those channels that was created because of the outages issues with the Outdoor Life channel. Outdoor Life, Outdoor Living channel. So they've managed to stick around for since 2009, I believe, almost 10 years now, and they've signed Impact, which is Pursuit is owned by Anthem, so they have a promotion that is now in this situation. See, Impact's situation, I think, is kind of being miscast at this point. They actually are on quite a lot of networks at this point because of the Globe Wrestling Network thing. They're on subscriber networks like Pluto TV at this point. And while that doesn't necessarily get them a lot of monetary revenue, it's something. They're doing a rebuild at this point. They are doing a lot more now. They're starting to become more exclusive to Canada than they are to the States. And I think that's basically what John Callis and Scotty D'Amore want to do with Impact. They want to make it sort of this global touring promotion that is based in Canada to cut costs because expenses are cheaper in Canada at this point. You also have a lot of access to a lot of Canadian talent and a lot of talent from America that is in the northern part of the state. So if you want to bring in a guy that's a cruiserweight, you've got ample roster people that you can put on. Guys from Smash Wrestling, for example. Those guys you could literally pick the farm of, and you would find a very good wrestler on that roster. Alpha One, same deal. Ethan Page owns that promotion. So you've got access to guys who are Alpha 1 talent. If you can get some situations with some of the legal situations taken care of for some of these people because they've had trouble with the Canadian border people, or if you're just doing a tour in just Canada, you can have guys like Josh Alexander, Vanessa Craven, and Mike Bailey on your roster. You've got a lot of options there. And I think Impact has realized that. And I think what they're doing is they're centralizing their market in Canada so that they can focus on everything else that is going on around them. And that seems to be a very intelligent move by them. And I know that we criticize Impact, we criticize the original Donner Party of professional wrestling, but they're making a lot of very solid roster moves. They have got Johnny Mundo Hennigan, Impact, Blackcraft, Divine, whatever his name is at this moment, as your main roster guy. Brian Cage is having a phenomenally good run in Impact, but your stars are the Knockouts division. The Knockouts division has always been one of the strongest divisions that TNA has always had, that Impact has always had. Tessa Blanchard has benefited greatly from being in this promotion. If she was in NXT, she would still have a. But Anthem paid their fans to show up for PvPs in the beginning. It's Canadian common courtesy, Taker. You invite somebody to a roast. You put out food, you put out drink. Heck, Jeff Jarrett in the Panda Energy era did this as well. It's like an Impact Wrestling tradition, paying fans to come to the arena. They did it when they were in the Asylum in Knoxville. They did it in the Impact Zone, and they did it in the most hospitable place on the planet, Canada. I mean, why not try to sell wares like wrestling T-shirts, Impact, the maple syrup, the flamethrower, Impact branded silverware. To what purpose, though? Get people in the door. It's basically like a Consumer Electronics Expo. You're getting people in the door to showcase your product. As much as it is a negative in the short term, in the long term, people are going to I see no way to make money doing that. I mean, the wrestlers made some money. They sell merch at the shows. To my understanding, they sell merch at the shows. To show up for pay-per-views, that they have also had a situation of, and they're not doing it right now at this point. And heck, their biggest headache in Austin Aries walked out the door. you know, a man who has literally made a laughing joke out of Promise Commitment Wings. So Austin Aries, you got him for a year. Aries is like the 1-year wonder. He can do solid things for your program, but he's so much of a headache for everybody that he leaves after a year. I mean, ROH doesn't want him. So where is he going to head into next, I think? I think it's probably going to be MLW, given the fact that they have a tendency to sign a lot of people that have very questionable track records. And we can rant and rave about the problematics all day. They're stuck in Orlando. They're stuck with the cannibalistic hillbillies. So that's a situation where it's like, okay. Okay. So either MLW or New Japan. Oh, New Japan would be fantastic for Aries. If he ends up facing Tanahashi and accidentally stiffs the guy, Tanahashi's going to be unleashing his grumpy mode. I'm actually looking forward to this Omega Tanahashi match for just the simple fact of how badly is Tanahashi going to end Omega? Because dear Kenny has been having a large amount of karma-related issues in the past year, and I think his karma is about to run out with Tanahashi. I mean, and people are saying, well, Omega's going to side with All Elite Wrestling. Is there going to be anything left of Kenny Omega after Hiroshi Tanahashi is done destroying him at Wrestle Kingdom? That's the question you probably should be asking. Because old man Tanahashi has tapped into the grumpiest of grumpiest professional wrestlers from Japan's era. He is 41 years old now. And Cody is likely going to be dropping. And to continue the point with New Japan, Cody's likely dropping the United States Championship. I can't recall exactly who he's facing in that match. I think it might be Juice Robinson. Well, there's a name that has been the most unlikely person to benefit from this whole Sengoku period of wrestling. The former CJ Parker, who was this evil hippie activist who ended up getting brutally ended by Kevin Owens, who's set to come back after the Royal Rumble, apparently. Or during the Royal Rumble, apparently. Him and Zayn are looking at that timetable at this point. But yeah, Impact has got a very solid young roster. They have probably one of the better women's divisions in wrestling right now, which is as odd to say, but like you now have Jordynne Grace, who's one of the youngest people there at 22 years old. You have Kiara Hogan, you have Allie, you have Rosemary for at least one more year. Um, you have Tessa Blanchard, you have Sue Young, and you have a really solid division there. Oh yeah, I remember that MDS is actually going to Wrestle Kingdom this year. We'll be there live, and we'll be going it over this weekend on our show. Okay. I'm just still trying to remember who the United States. I think it's Juice Robinson. I think he's the guy that is going to be facing Cody for the U.S. Championship. Now, come to think of it, oh, okay, yeah. Nick Adis actually got the belt back. Oh, that's right. We have an eighth competitor. Crazy Billy Corrigan, Dave Lagana, and the National Wrestling Alliance, who are probably going to be likely allying with the Tennessee promotions and the promotions in the Midwest. So, okay, you've got the NWA, you've got PWG, you've got Limitless up in Maine. ESW had one of their best years in Buffalo. You have a lot of local talent. And this is the arising of the Warring Elite. It literally is the Warring States period, but in professional wrestling terms. WWE right now is the Ashitaka Shogunate. The Orin War is something that they are not necessarily prepared for at this point. And in the next edition of Wacky World of Wrestling, I am going to be talking about the international markets in more detail, more specifically what's been going on in the United Kingdom, the American perspective on the UK situation. That should be a pretty interesting show for me to cover, and I am looking forward to hearing about the New Japan show from Shooting the Breeze. I hear that they just finished their 2018 Golden Bullet Awards. Programming note, folks, for those of you who might not be aware, Shooting Breeze and a bunch of other podcasts have moved over to Twitch for this Los Ingobernables Day podcast thing that they've been planning for ages, and it's now active. It's now live. I have been on Shooting the Breeze, covering for Taker and Senju, because Taker was tired during the show, and Senju had just tried to replace a tire while on a hill. So hopefully he doesn't run into any living rampaging tires or angry sumo wrestlers while he's doing his coverage broadcast for Wrestle Kingdom this weekend. But this week is going to be very interesting in the world of professional wrestling as far as the news is concerned, because there's going to be a lot more folks covering All Elite Wrestling, and they're going to be covering all of these different wrestling promotions and who's exactly signed to who's got an exclusive contract, who's got this and that and whatnot. But like I said, programming note: Wacky World of Wrestling is the one of the few podcasts that is staying on YouTube at this point. I said that in the season free overview show, but I'm going to be staying on YouTube at this point. Figure might as well give you all some coverage, since I know that Twitch has a tendency to be somewhat unreliable at times. But those guys over at Los Ingobernables Day podcast have had some success with Twitch at this point, and they're getting things all set up and neat and tidy and whatnot. Also, they have a sumo bash show starting this week. Taker's telling me in the comments. Oh yes, the Hatsu Bash show, the one that starts in mid-January. That should be fairly interesting to hear, because the world of sumo has yet again had more upheaval. And funny story about the sumo thing. When I was talking about the festive night of sumo karaoke in Totori, the Takanohana Haruma Fuji story had one more dimension in it. The guy who had been attacked by Haruma Fuji, Takanohana, he retired from sumo after he assaulted his Tukibiko. Takanoiwa retired. Yeah, Takanoiwa retired after he assaulted his Tukibiko. So two wrestlers, a stable and a stable master, All this basically says to me is please do not feed your sumo wrestlers after midnight. because because chaos or show them the shining bright lights of a karaoke machine because all chaos will just assume. But yeah, this has been a such a fun show to do because it's like, yes, they are gremlins. They are sumo gremlins. They consume everything. Your yakisoba is not safe. Yes, not even the origami is safe from the sumo wrestlers. So, overall, thoughts about this situation. I rather like it. I mean, for the wrestlers, it's great. It increases their value at this point in time, where they can basically choose to have so many options as to where they want to sign, where they want to go in their direction. If you want to have like a 2-year retirement run in WWE, you can do so now. Late in your career, you can sign with one of these other promotions, build yourself up. You know, a lot of people complain about this whole "there's no stars in wrestling anymore" thing, which I find is completely, absolutely bonkers. I'm like, there's stars everywhere. There's stars in your mid card, there's stars in your lower card, there's stars in your upper card, there's stars in your main event scene. What is the current definition for star in wrestling? Have we raised that bar so gosh dang high that nobody is really sure what it means anymore? Because to me, people are stars. The mere fact that you're contributing positively to a wrestling card and making people show up to your events, that's a star making performance. Okay. I mean, even here in my local neck of the woods, 5 wrestling shows. Um, 3 of them were paid, 1 was at the county fair, and 1 was a free show. All of them did incredibly well in attendance. Incredibly well. Like basically 85, 95%, you know, full. Okay, I did that random guest on Juice Robinson and Facing Cody. I was not sure if the advertising for the New Japan show was correct or not. I haven't really been paying attention much to New Japan after the Shibata headbutt incident, but yeah, they've got Cody versus Robertson, and Robertson's probably regaining the U.S. belt again. Because basically, what has happened in this situation for New Japan, as far as other thoughts are concerned, for New Japan, this is a devastating blow. For WWE, this is a devastating blow because New Japan has basically had their Wrestle Kingdom card spoiled because Cody, the Bucks, and everybody else. They did their tag league tournament this year, and the Bucks basically randomly showed up to challenge both the champions and the challengers for the tag belts. So they're probably taking the pinfall loss in this situation, which is a smart sense of booking, but the Bucks didn't do anything in the entire tag tournament because they pulled out because of allegedly having an injury. Something to keep in mind though, the Bucks are a bit more carny than a lot of these other wrestlers. I mean, heck, Cody Rhodes, who's part of the legendary Rhodes family, is far more honest than the Bucks are. So that's something to keep in mind when you are talking about All Elite Wrestling. If you're hearing news from the Bucks or Crazy Dave, who apparently have been sitting on these sources for months, which is okay, that's fine. I'm not in the business of trying to outscoop the maniac ice cream scoopers. Okay, that's their business. My business is as a random outsider who is an observer of professional wrestling because I make no bones about it. While I am a fan of professional wrestling and while I certainly can logically deduct what is going on in the world of wrestling because okay, I'm the son of a PhD therapist, okay? The words "you cannot work me" are basically intertwined into my skull at this point. Entwined into my skull at this point. So you have a situation where I can make a lot of astute observations just by looking at things, just by looking at what is going on in the world of professional wrestling. But I'm certainly am not one of these insiders. I'm not one of these wrestling media insider people. You know, I'm not a scoopster or a dirt screen person or anything like that. But Oftentimes, I can surprise folks. I predicted Ryback would join Paul Heyman's entourage a few years ago before they even revealed it, and it was just based on a gut feeling. Ryback wasn't doing anything, so they're going to put him in that role or that position. When it comes to WWE booking and when it comes to the creative stuff, it's very normal that you're able to predict what they're doing in situations. And as far as All Elite Wrestling is concerned, they're going all double or nothing. They're probably going to have a lot of freelance talent. It's going to basically be double or nothing, the tryout show. So we might be getting some names that are going to be unlikely, but they're probably going to be names that are going to be synonymous with All Elite Wrestling. A lot of these well-known big-name indie tag teams, for example, they might be getting signed. You've got teams like the Butcher and the Blade, revitalized Pepper Parks' career, and Andy Williams, the one front man for Every Time I Guide, the band, musical band. They may end up in All Elite Wrestling. Everybody is now scrambling like an NFL free agency, and that's the thing about professional wrestling. I don't originally come from the professional wrestling world. I used to be, and still am, a sports fan. So I look at pro wrestling much like I look at a sports roster. And when you look at this sports roster, there is a lot of different interchangeable pieces that are about to show up, as well as the fact that WWE has a lot of expired contracts this year. Are they going to be able to re sign AJ Styles? Is Mr. Lifetime Wrestler John Cena preparing for a Lucha Libre run in CMLL? I mean, he's growing out his hair. He's going to need a haircut soon. I mean, if we're going all fantasy booking, and note, folks, I don't really like to do fantasy booking with actual live active wrestlers. I prefer my creative mode edit wrestlers from Fire Pro. But if I had to guess, they're basically keeping John Cena barely on their roster. And that might be a piece that might be going. I mean, Vince wants to push John as this all decade thing, but it might be a situation similar to what happened with Austin, Rock, and Hogan, where Vince might not be able to keep Cena around. Heck, he might be ending up working spot shows for the Oriental Wrestling Federation. That's a sub promotion that just opened up in I think it is Hong Kong. That's run by SEMA. If you have not seen Oriental Wrestling Entertainment (OWE), those shows are absolutely bonkers, and they are amazing. It's a bunch of Chinese opera house students who have now who have joined up with SEMA, and SEMA is training them. Not John Cena, but SEMA, the wrestler from Dragon's Gate, is training these guys. So you have a situation where it's like, and it's like you have the Warring Elite. We are in a Sengoku period. A Sengoku period of wrestling that is just so interesting to look at right now, and we haven't even scratched barely the surface. I've just covered the American market and a little bit of Japan. Next episode is episode 56, which I think it's time to go to Britain and take a look at Monty Hunter's Blackpool Circus. But until that next show comes up, which, depending on my track record at this point, either might show up in a couple hours or a few days. This has been William Fitzpatrick. You can follow me on Twitter at Fizzpatrick14. I'm starting to get a little bit more active in the world of professional wrestling once again. I took a holiday vacation, and I've been taking it really easy over 2018. And I feel well rested and ready to just have some fun in the world of professional wrestling. I don't have any form of big expectations this year. I have a lot of modest expectations this year. But anyway, Shooting the Breeze will be covering the Wrestle Kingdom card. Is it on the same Saturday date? Because Wrestle Kingdom's going to be on the 3rd of the 4th, the January 4th show. Okay. So January 4th, and I guess Shooting the Breeze will be covering it that weekend. And also, definitely going to want to tune in when they get back from their trip. WrestleNomics Radio. Chris Harrington, aka Mookie Aganya, is off in Japan right now, and he's heading to Wrestle Kingdom. They're going to be doing a covering of the Japan show, and who knows when they get back? They're obviously going to be covering the All Elite Wrestling stuff. They've been covering a lot of the trademark stuff. Chris Harrington and Brandon Howard Furston have been covering a lot of the intellectual property stuff. They can get into a lot of the nitty gritty financial detail stuff. I mean, for me, Vince McMahon angered the football gods, and the football gods are now getting revenge on him again. Again, Vince has accidentally created his own enemy. Although it's kind of funny in this situation, also, Hunter's also accidentally created his own enemy in Cody Rhodes. Oops. Anyway, this has been William Fitzpatrick. Have a good rest of your evening, folks, and I'll see you for the next edition of Wacky World of Wrestling, where I'll be covering the United Kingdom and their extremely strange situation where they have encountered the menace known as George Barrios, the Bingo Master. Oh, that's going to be fun. Until then, folks, have a good day or night, and I'll see you next time. Bye!